Assalamualaikum, hai, and salam biru warna. My name is Nur Kisina Balkis binti Muhammad Roslan, and my matric number is 309701. Today, our group will be presenting on price elasticity of demand, or also known as PED. Before discussing the journal articles we selected, I would first like to explain what price elasticity of demand is and why it is important in business decision making. Price elasticity of demand refers to the responsiveness of consumers to a change in the price of a product or service. In simple terms, it measures how much the quantity demanded changes when the price changes. For example, when the price of a product increases, will consumers continue buying it as usual, or will they reduce the purchases and switch to alternative products? This consumer response can be explained through the concept of price elasticity of demand. Generally, there are two main types of demand elasticity. The first one is elastic demand. This occurs when a small change in price leads to a relatively large change in quantity demanded. Products with many substitutes such as soft drinks or snacks are often considered as elastic because consumers can easily switch to other alternatives. The second type is inelastic demand. This occurs when the changes in price have little effect on the quantity demanded. Essential goods such as fuel, electricity, and certain medicines are often inelastic because consumers still need them regardless of the price changes. Price elasticity of demand is an important concept for both businesses and governments. For businesses, it helps managers make better pricing decisions. Understanding how consumers respond to price changes allows companies to maximize their revenues and remain competitive in the market. For governments, elasticity is useful when designing policies such as taxes and subsidies because it helps predict how consumers are likely to react to changes in prices. For our presentation today, we focus on the case of sugar-sweetened beverages, commonly known as sugary drinks. This topic became increasingly relevant in Malaysia after the government reduced the sugar-sweetened beverage tax or sugar tax as part of its effort to reduce excessive sugar consumption and encourage healthy lifestyles. As a result of this policy, the prices of certain sugary drinks increased. This raises an important question. Will consumers continue purchasing these drinks despite the higher prices, or will they reduce their consumption and switch to other alternatives? This question is closely related to the concept of price elasticity of demand because it examines how consumers respond to price changes. However, not all products respond to price changes in the same way. Some products experience a large change in demand when prices change, while others experience very little change. Therefore, different categories of elasticity are used to explain these varying consumer responses. With that, I would like to pass the presentation to our second presenter who will discuss the different types of price elasticity of demand and explain how consumer responsiveness varies across different products. Thank you!
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Nurwida Najla binti Muhammad Rizal. My matric number is 313784 and I will be presenting about the types of elasticity. There are four types of elasticity of demand. On this slide, we will look at elastic and inelastic first. This concept shows how consumers respond to changes in price. First, let's look at elastic demand. Elastic demand occurs when the percentage of changes in quantity demand is greater than the percentage of changes in price. Referring to the graph above, a 10% change in price leads to a larger change in quantity demand, which is 20%. This means elasticity is greater than 1. Consumers are very sensitive to price change and demand responds strongly. For instance, goods with many substitutes like luxury brands such as Chanel or Dior usually fall into this category. Next, let's take a look at inelastic demand. Inelastic demand occurs when the percentage of changes in quantity demand is less than the percentage of changes in price. In this case, a 10% change in price only leads to a small change in quantity demand, which is 4%. This means elasticity is less than 1. Consumers are not very sensitive to price change and demand respond weakly. Examples of inelastic demand include necessary goods like rice or medication, which people must buy regardless of price. In short, inelastic demand is the opposite of elastic demand. On this slide, we are looking at the two extreme cases of price elasticity of demand, which is perfectly elastic and perfectly inelastic. First, let's look at the perfectly elastic case. Referring to the graph, the demand curve is horizontal, meaning consumers will only buy at one exact price. If the price increases even slightly, the quantity demands drop to zero. This situation is represented by elasticity equal to infinity. It shows that consumers are extremely sensitive to price changes. On the other side, we have perfectly inelastic demand. Based on the graph above, the demand curve is vertical, meaning the quantity demand does not change at all no matter how much the price changes. It means that elasticity equal to zero. Consumers have no sensitivity to the price change at all. For example, essential drugs or medication for chronic disease, where people must buy regardless of the price. Moving on, let's relate the types of elasticity with this article. Based on this article, the types of elasticity for sugar sweetened beverage SSB is elastic since the elasticity value is negative 1.11, which is greater than 1. This value can be interpreted as 10% increase in the price of SSB will be followed by a decrease of 11.1% in quantity demand for SSB. We can note that the quantity demand decreased because of the negative value from the elasticity. So, in summary, there are four types of price elasticity of demand. Elastic demands mean consumers are highly responsive to price changes, while inelastic demands means consumers are less responsive to price change. Furthermore, perfectly elastic demands means buyers are highly sensitive and will only purchase at one fixed price, while perfectly inelastic demands means buyers are completely insensitive to price change. Understanding this will help business and policymakers predict how price change will affect sales and consumption. With that, the next presenter will talk about the factors affecting price elasticity of demand. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good evening. My name is Nur Christina binti Muhammad Termizi and my matric number is 309883. Today I would like to present about the factor that affecting price elasticity of demand. As we know that price elasticity of demand is the responsiveness of the quantity demand when there are any changes in the price of goods or any products. And there are the four main factors that I will talk in this slide, which is the first one that affect the price elasticity of demand is availability of substitute. The second one is necessity versus luxury. And the third one is proportion of income. Last one is time periods. The first factor that I will talk is availability of substitutes. When there are so many close substitutes of the product, consumer can easily shift them when there are increase in the price of the product. As the result, the demand become more elastic because consumers are more responsive to the price changes. This can be seen or shown that in the study of Malaysian sugar sweetener beverage, after the implementation of sugar tax, consumers are reducing their purchasing in the sugary drinks and they start to find another alternative when they start to buy plain water and low sugar drink. This shows that availability of substitutes are effects in the elasticity of demand because consumers have so many other availability options. This means that if the product have more close substitutes, there are higher of the price elasticity of the demands in the product or that's goods. The second factor is whether the product is necessity or luxury. Necessity product is the product that consumer usually needs in their daily life, for example, foods, electricity, and healthcare. The consumer will continue to purchase it even though there are increase in the price of the goods or product. This making this product demand is relatively inelastic. In contrast with the luxury product tend to be more elastic because consumers can reduce or postpone their purchasing when the price of the product is increased. According to the Malaysian sugar sweetener beverage study, demand for sugar drinks are decreased after the sugar tax was introduced. This says that the consumers see the beverage as non-essential product and they are willing to reduce the consumption when the price have increased. The conclusion that I can say that luxury goods generally have more elastic demand compared to the necessity goods. The third factor is the proportions of income spent on a product. Consumers tend to be more sensitive to the price changes when a product takes up a large proportion of their income. In these situations, demand is usually more elastic. On the other hand, products that represent only a small percentage of income tend to have inelastic demand because consumers are less affected by a small price increase. As a Malaysian study on beverage demand found that a lower income household were more responsive to the price changes compared to higher income household. This is because price increase have a greater impact on their overall spending. As a result, products that require a large share of income generally have more elastic demand. The last factor is the time period available for the consumer to adjust their behavior. In the short run, demand is usually less elastic because consumers need time to change their habits and find other alternatives. However, in the long run, demand becomes more elastic because consumers have more opportunity to adjust their consumption patterns. The Malaysian sugar tax study showed that consumers gradually reduce their consumptions on sugary drinks over time. This indicates that demand becomes more elastic in the long run as a consumer adapt to the higher price and switch to another alternative beverage. Therefore, the longer the time available for adjustment, the more elastic demand tends to become too. In the conclusion, the price of elasticity demand is influenced by several important factors as I present in the previous slide, which is this includes availability of substitutes, whether a product is necessity or luxury, the proportions of income that spends on the product, and the time period available for the consumer to adjust their behavior. Understanding this factor is really important because it helps business to predict how consumer will respond to the price changes, and the businesses will make a better decisions in pricing decisions. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Nabila Syafiqah binti Subaat and I will be presenting the importance of price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is a measurement of the change in demand for a good or service in relation to a change in its price. Understanding this relationship is crucial for businesses and governments as it influences decisions about pricing, taxation, revenue strategies, and overall market planning. Price elasticity of demand is not just theory, it has practical applications that affect everyday life and business success. So, why is price elasticity of demand is important? Okay, first of all, price elasticity of demand is important for pricing strategies. This is because when demand is elastic, consumers are highly responsive to price changes. So, even a small increase in price can cause sales to drop sharply. However, if demand is inelastic, consumers will continue buying despite higher prices, as with necessities like petrol or medicine. For businesses, knowing whether their product is elastic or inelastic helps them decide whether to use competitive pricing, discounts, or premium pricing. For example, in fashion industry, where there are many substitutes, demand is usually elastic. So, promotions and seasonal sales are more effective in selling their products. Besides that, price elasticity of demand helps in maximizing revenue and profit. This is because for elastic goods, lowering prices can increase sales volume, which at the same time will increase the total revenue. Nevertheless, for inelastic goods, raising prices can increase revenue because consumers will keep on buying the products. This principle guides firms in adjusting prices to meet their financial goals. For instance, a luxury brand may rely on inelastic demand, while a hijab brand in a competitive market benefits more from promotional pricing to maximize their sales. Furthermore, price elasticity of demand is crucial for government taxation and policy making. Governments use elasticity to predict how taxes will affect consumption and revenue. For inelastic goods like cigarettes, higher taxes helps to boost tax revenue since the smokers keep buying them despite the price hikes. However, for elastic goods such as sweet drinks, the government imposed sugar tax to discourage consumption. Apart from that, subsidies are also applied to essential goods with inelastic demand like rice or cooking oil to protect consumers from price shocks. In addition, price elasticity of demand supports business planning and forecasting. By analyzing elasticity, firms can plan inventory, marketing campaigns, and promotions more effectively. A company that understands its customers' price sensitivity can design targeted promotions during festive seasons or adjust production to avoid overstocking. This reduces risk and improves efficiency. Finally, price elasticity of demand has implications for consumer welfare and market efficiency. Policymakers can use elasticity to design measures that protect vulnerable groups from excessive price increases. Subsidies or price controls on basic necessities ensure affordability for low-income households, which contribute to a fairer economy. In conclusion, price elasticity of demand influences pricing strategies, revenue management, taxation, business planning, and also consumer protection. Understanding price elasticity of demand allows businesses and policymakers to predict how consumers will react to price changes, ultimately optimizing pricing strategies and maximizing total revenue. That's all from us. Thank you.